Hi everyone, my name is Simon Löffler, I'm from Rosenberger. Hochfrequenztechnik, my partner on stage and at work, introduce himself.
My name is Björn Gehlhausen, I'm founder and managing director of Skyway and supporting Rosenberger in this project like a kind of trusted advisor for the S/4HANA implementation.
And now we want to show you how Rosenberger use the integrated tool chain for an S/4HANA greenfield implementation. Now, first of all, who we are and what we do. Rosenberger is a family-owned founded company since 1958 in Friedolfing. I see some question marks on some heads. Where? Friedolfing is on the southeastern of Bavaria, near the border to Salzburg, Austria. We are over 50,000 employees around the world in plants and sales office. And the four big business areas from Rosenberger are, you can see, automotive, interconnect, semicon test, and custom managing. I think every one of you had some indirect contact with products from us, like in cars or in the mobile communication. Sorry about that. We are a constantly growing company with billions of sales, and that is some challenge for us and also the market environment. So what we do, we start our ROS-HANA project. It's an, I said, S/4HANA greenfield implementation. Full transformation from our old, since decade used old ERP system. SAP active methodology mixed with implementation partner approach, that's true. With the first wave for our headquarter in Germany, in Friedolfing, and our plants in Hungary. With, you can see, approx over 3,600 users. That's many. For the first wave, go live is planned at the end of 2025. This project is new, set up in January 2024, this year. High relevant for Rosenberger worldwide is the accessibility for operations. So you can see our challenge. I think you can see our actual timeline.
It's the principal timeline to clarify a little bit more. The guys have started with a design phase in January this year. Design phase is going on until August approximately, and now we are directly in the implementation phase for the whole company, especially for Germany and Hungary. Planned, of course, also mock loads, so the transfer of data from the old ERP system to the S/4HANA system, in place, 3 integration tests, which we will execute, which we will show you in a few minutes, of course, directly with Cloud ALM, as well as the whole implementation.
Okay, and what challenges does this project have for us? Rosenberger is undergoing a fundamental change. We had a new management since past years, dynamic market environment, internationalization, and for all of us, the business transformation. History for us, different primary projects using our old ERP system. You can see the name. I don't want to talk about this. Since decades. Strong project management are necessary, and we have all the same problem. A transformation or a S4HANA project is a business project, not an IT project. That's the biggest challenge, I think. The reorganization for this project and the S4HANA implementation have to be on synchronization for master data governance and management, and setup of a whole process in this organization. The split of responsibilities between Germany and Hungary, headquarter, and our plants in Hungary is historic. So, strong integration of business. This project, yeah, you can see, new business process owner, key user strategy is one of the biggest things in the company that we have to realize. Strong leadership and clear structures are necessary, and keeping all persons up to date worldwide. So, what we use.
What we need to use in the future is very simple. You have seen this slide, I think, a lot of times last year. But to give you an additional impression from the outside, Rosenberger has a simple challenge. Growing in average 15% since the last 5 or 6 years, steadily, worldwide. Yeah? To make it simple, so the guys have to reorganize and set up for bigger business in the future, and we are simply growing because of their intelligent technology in the background. What we decided to use with Rosenberger in this case is to have a focus on using a tool chain, an integrated tool chain, which SAP guys presented us last or even 2 years ago. Go with a focus to integrate different functionalities, starting with LeanIX for enterprise architecture management, the integration we have seen yesterday. On the one hand, on the next hand, SAP Signavio for creating processes from the business side and integrating all the stuff, and of course, Cloud ALM. Simple definition, the implementation partner before provided a solution manager 3 years old with some topics, no focus built inside, whatever. So the discussion was what to set up for a new project, for a challenging new project. And if we talk about the challenging new project, we talk about what we need for a whole implementation. What we have done, set SAP Cloud ALM as the future product of the SAP for Application Lifecycle Management directly in the middle for the implementation, for change management and test management. And what we want to provide you in the next minute is not something only on slides, it's reality at the moment. We are directly working with it. We talk about 250 users on Cloud ALM, nearly the whole implementation team for working with this topic. Additionally, of course, the SAP S4HANA landscape is implemented. It's a wise customer on this hand, but we decided to handle all the things throughout SAP Cloud ALM. Directly defined from the implementation partner, also Jira is in place. Jira is used for the central structure of the project, for agile handling, for the whole reporting, defined from the implementation partner. So we have to find out how to handle at least the communication between Cloud ALM and Jira to make it an integrated process and not something totally independent. If we go in more detail, also SAP Signavio is in place for process modeling. So what we use in this case is direct modeling of SAP Signavio elements. Means not only the process itself, we also focus on variants of the processes on the one hand, and we also store executables in SAP Signavio, which we will use later on, also for some additional topics which we have in place. So for example, test automation. Because the focus simply, As you have perhaps seen before, we integrate or set up a template for Germany and Hungary, but we talk about a lot of other subsidiaries. I think 33 is my number I have in place totally, where we have to do a rollout.
That's true.
Totally with S/4HANA. And additionally, to make it hopefully complete, we also integrate Linux, because as you have heard before, Rosenberger is setting up a whole new structure, have to be prepared for the future, and needs to know what is necessary, how we can change the IT, and how we can prepare the IT for the future. To get a little bit more in detail, step by step for you, because nice slides, but I think we talk about processes, integration, and topics. I will at least show you a little bit later on how this process is integrated. I will also show you at least an impression of a BPMN diagram behind this topic. Hopefully I do not get you crazy, but I will show you the steps. Simple focus in this case only on the Jira user story. You need a Jira user story directly in the design phase, and here also have to directly store at least the process step with a relevant element in the right process in Signavio. Otherwise, you do not get to the status definition of ready, and you are not allowed to implement. As you have seen, we are directly focused in this case on Jira in red, and blue is, of course, Cloud ALM, which we will directly take a look in a few minutes. After the sprint planning is done, and you have every user story in the status of in realization, we directly integrate elements from SAP Signavio, and we create automatically a Calm feature and a Calm test case, directly linked back to the Jira user story. Yeah, I will show you the links directly, and of course we take care of the status values of a Calm feature on the one hand, and the functional test case on the other hand. When we go to the next step, of course, after all user stories have been finished, we get the Jira feature, in principle done, on a process level, and of course, if we go back, we also need a test case for this topic, which is also created automatically out of Jira and linked to Jira with the whole elements inside. Have it step by step, coming from a user story in different definitions up to the Calm test case. To go a little bit more in detail for the test case, to give you a small impression, I do not want to guide you through the whole process this afternoon because it can be a little bit more complicated. Nevertheless, directly out of a user story, if a user story changes to the status in realization, we create a test case in the status in preparation via the interface, which I will clarify in a few minutes, directly to the test case. When the test case is prepared, it's at the moment for first step empty. Yeah, it's a user story functional test case. I will show you later on how we pre-fill the integration test case, but for the functional test case, we use this test case. It's changed from a workstream lead to prepared after it has been set up to the status prepared. To make it not too complicated, from the prepared status of a test case and the feature in the status successfully tested, we go back to Jira and say, yes, thank you very much, we are ready for functional test. This is what we do. So how do the SAP guys tell us it's restrictions which will be implemented in Calm in the future? To make it hopefully a little bit more clear on the different test case levels, on the one hand, to a Jira user story, we directly create a user story in Calm, a feature in Calm, and a functional test case. It's normally on level 4, so on process step level, during the whole implementation for each element which is implemented. Additionally, of course, a Jira user story realizes a feature, so different user stories, of course, and from the Jira feature, we create automatically a so-called solution process in Cloud ALM, as a link. We create an integration test case, and we also set up for first step an automatic test case. Because the focus is we want to prepare the template, but we also want to prepare the rollouts later on. So we have also the focus to use test automation if possible. And of course, for the integration test case, we have a focus to use directly the diagrams from Signavio, because nice functionality of Cloud ALM, after we created, in fact, the solution process, and the solution process, in fact, gets the information from the diagram, you can create an integration test case depending on the process, and every change you do in the process will have an effect in the test case, which you can reuse. So you are in the direction of a life cycle on your way, hopefully. Challenge for the integration itself, simply topic. As stated before, the idea was we have a 2-year program. So what should we use? Does it make sense to still stay at the solution manager or to go forward to SAP Cloud ALM? And we had the implementation partner with a Jira template in place and the solution manager roadmap. So the topic that we have to care with 2027, so why not go forward and use what is possible directly integrated for the customer. To make it clear, main topics in place. On the one hand, SAP Cloud ALM with input from SAP Signavio for manual tests, also SAP Cloud ALM, and for test automation Tricentis, linked with Jira to have a whole reporting in place and the handling of the agile methodology, and of course LeanIX integrated. From a technology basis, you will find the most topics from the guys from Galileo, which you have heard before. So we use Galileo Connect to integrate all the elements. Simply, we use Connect Connect in the middle, a database in the background on the BTP, SAP Cloud ALM on the BTP, and the focus to use REST APIs to the other tools to set up the whole topic. To make it clear for you, the definition of the process was the big challenge, not the technical implementation. Technical implementation took approximately 50 to 20 days. Yeah? The other stuff can be done directly. Yeah?
That sounds definitely and looks like definitely crazy, but it works for us.
So simply, I want to show you the BPMN diagrams for this topic. Now you perhaps know why it took some time to define it in detail. And of course, it's not only the user story life cycle, it's also the life cycle of a defect later on, because perhaps you have seen before we will also use defects and bugs from a Jira side, so we also have to integrate this process totally. Yeah, if you go in a little bit more detail, but because I want to show you at least the integration on both sides, what we use and how it is integrated. In this case, we start with a feature on the Jira side, create out of this feature also a requirement on the Cloud ALM side, because we need a pendant on the other side which we can handle and which we can use for relinking the elements. If we go more in detail, we come from a feature, the requirement, and of course from the user story, we go with a link to the feature on the Jira side, and we create, because of the topics in the background, on a status change definition, because when the user story changes to in realization, then the elements on Calm side are set up and integrated. So we simply create out of a user story a Calm user story, a Calm feature, and a manual test case. Because we need all these elements for the implementation on the one side and for the testing on the other side. Everything automatically done and relinked, which I can show you a few slides later. So every of these elements are also linked back what I do not want to tell you in too much detail, we also have a BPML hierarchy which we synchronize between Jira, Cloud ALM and Signavio. We have a clear definition which processes in which details have to be implemented. So we also use the hierarchy, so all these elements are linked as far as possible also to the so-called hierarchy in Cloud ALM. All these elements, and of course, out of a manual test case, if you create a defect, the next step is we create a bug in Jira and have a direct link to these elements. Just to go to the logical links, of course, the requirement is linked to the feature. The feature is linked, the user story is linked to the manual test case, and backwards. So you can jump nearly from each element to the other one. The only topic is still we have to link for the feature to a test case, because this link is missing but ongoing concerning the implementation from the current side. All these elements directly integrated show you how it looks like in the system, at least a little bit. If you have enough time, we can show you a demo directly in the system, but nevertheless, at least a screenshot from the topic. We have a feature with a handover to test status, an integrated test case, an integrated transport request. We have here directly the link to the Calm user story, and here you can find directly the link to the Jira user story. If you go to the other side, to Jira, get in Jira the definition of a user story, link to relevant documentation, realizes the feature, and the direct web links to the user story, feature, and test case. Directly created, set up, and linked to each other. Not only on this link side, also on technical side with GUIDs in the background, but this is another topic we can discuss in detail. Why we decide to use for the Conigma Connect? Simply, easy to buy, mainly you have seen the implementation time on the one hand, and on the other side it's simply also price definition. Yeah? Easy to implement, easy to use, easy to configure, stable, to be clear. Only one simple implementation and one simple link. Hopefully this makes sense for you. We want to go a little bit further, because we are focusing also on test automation, on integration, on the next topic. So the idea in the background, we have Signavio in place. We have a process manager in place. We have defined processes in place in Signavio. Basic for the whole implementation. What we define additionally, we also have a focus to use these processes for testing. So what we do, we force the implementation partner to also store the information in SAP Signavio about the relevant company code, about the relevant executable for each step, so transaction or Fiori app mainly, and also some additional topics about who is handling the process. We transfer these topics mainly on the one hand, to the test preparation for manual test cases, but our focus is also to go to the sub-test automation by Tricentis, and at least use these elements, because if you have in Signavio the definition that you will use a create sales order, why do you have to do it another time in sub-test automation by Tricentis? Because you have the information in place in Signavio. Why not go through all these topics? So we use on the one hand the business process with a definition in Signavio, and also additional elements like user role, variants, user activities, systems directly stored in Signavio, because we want to reuse it. Not for only painting diagrams. It's the focus to reuse it in the implementation phase, and also for monitoring later on. So we have a simple focus on using it, like on the slide from the SAP side. So using SAP Signavio define at least the process, publish the process, transfer the topics with process and process steps to SAP Cloud ALM, generate automatic test cases, manual test cases, link requirements as you have seen, user stories and features and transport, and use especially the process and the process step with the executables also in Tricentis to have a pre-definition for the implementation. What we do, in fact, we go from Signavio with a business process. We create automatically a solution process in Cloud ALM. So the central link in our perspective for the implementation. We transfer directly the BPMN diagram. So we have a basic to set up from our focus a manual test case, at least. We talk about using libraries, of course, in the future, hopefully to get additional information in the manual test cases. And we also set up, in principle, an automated test case for each of these processes. It's only an empty shell for the moment, and it's also only an empty shell on the Tricentis side for the first topic. What we now do, we analyze the diagrams, and we paste the blocks which you need for test automation directly in Tricentis to prepare the test automation. Cannot do anything via this topic, but at least everything we have in place from the perspective of a process, we directly transfer to test cases and to automatic test cases to be prepared for the implementation in this case. Not to make it too complicated, of course, we use on the one hand a BPMN file, on the other hand a JSON file to export the topic and to put the topics directly on the other side in the elements for Tricentis. The solution is so intelligent at the moment that we even can identify different variants, different flows for the Signavio diagrams and can create, based on this topic, different variants which should be tested. This is what we use, and we put all the thing on the right side, hopefully get you pre-filled for test automation for each of your processes. I hope this makes sense for you, at least until this point in time. Simple topic, benefits. We have Lean IX in place to do from our side enterprise application landscape management. We have, on the other hand, the creation of processes in Signavio with relevant business processes and, of course, additional information. So, for example, different variants linked to different company codes, plans, whatever is necessary. We go to the next steps. We create and update custom processes in Cloud ALM because it's nice to transfer it on the one hand, but you have to update them also in the implementation process because, sorry to say, I haven't seen a lot of processes which will be stable from the first version. So you have to change it. And of course, we take care of test variants, we take care of executable units, and drive all this topic to this side. And on the other side, of course, because of a nice integration of TTA, we can use all these elements for the generation of automatic test cases. Manually, test steps are transferred from the idea, and we want to pre-fill also the applications if you have a library in place for the next step. And this was a very fast overview of all the topics we have done in the last months. Nevertheless, hopefully a little bit impressive. You can see we talk about 5,200 Jira user stories 2 weeks ago, so I think it will be more. At the moment, we have at least 200 in implementation during the actual sprints. We try to optimize the topic of SAP Signavio by using directly also executables in Cloud ALM, hopefully, because we want to provide to our customer testing which allows to directly jump into the relevant system. with the application in place at the calm test case, because we have users which haven't worked with SAP before. You guys have to be guided through their test cases, step by step. And of course, we use for this topic, we also want to set up a test automation. Simple, yeah, there will be a lot of rollouts. We do not want to test everything every time, another time. So we go in this direction. At the moment, we are testing the integration with Lean ISX and even the training solution. It's not enabled now in this case, sorry to say, but nevertheless, also a training solution is integrated. And we have a focus to reuse our test cases, because we need very detailed test cases for persons who haven't worked with SAP before. So we reuse even the test cases for training topics, and of course, there will be an intensive usage of a test execution when we go to the integration test next year. We talk about 520 processes, different processes linked to each other with different test data, so it will be an interesting testing period, also starting next year. All the things done, you have seen before. Galileo Group is supporting this integration. Yeah, done very fast, very easy. At least the possibility to do such integrations at the moment without doing programming. And on the other side, sorry to say, only a small consulting company who's working since now 3 years on the market with my person who is allowed to support the guys from Rosenberger. Hopefully in a fine manner during the last days, so I have to take care if I get in problems from this side. And this was a short overview of what we have done.
We think everything is clear, no questions. Thanks you.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Björn, for sharing this very challenging project with the super interesting timeline. Björn told me about this project a long time ago already, and he said he'd be happy to show it here. He was very confident. Guys, you did not disappoint. However, there will be questions here. I'm sure we have questions.
And to do not forget, very big thank you to the guys from SAP, because we were supported, especially from also Tim, on the other hand, from Mr. Klöffer, and as well, especially from Rainer Markaiser and from Moritz Giesler. So thank you very much for this support, especially in handling the integration topics. Thanks. Please.
Okay, I'm Oscar. I'm working for Steinweg in the Netherlands. We're also in a greenfield implementation, so it was very interesting. I have two questions. The first one is, what is the added value of Jira? Because I saw just creating requirements in ALM, so that was interesting. And the second question I have, you create a lot of automated test cases with the tool from Galileo. Mm-hmm. To me, then one of my concerns can be the maintainability of it, because you can create a lot of test cases, and then you have, how do you keep overview, and how do you manage not to have a lot of duplicate modules, test cases, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, very interesting topic. The last one. The first one was the decision of customer Rosenberger. We discussed very intensively if we need Jira in place. Yeah, as you have seen before, for the implementation partner, told he has a Jira template, the definition how to set up, especially in the automotive area. So this was the definition why we used Jira. Yeah, we tested it from the other side and discussed a long time if it was not sufficient to use Cloud ALM directly for this topic. Why other tools in place? But the definition was Jira, and sorry to say, customers are also believe in stable products and in long-term products on the market. And Cloud ALM, 1 year ago, was not the direct focus of a customer to use it also for the whole project. In my opinion, it was not really necessary to use Jira for this topic? First question. Next question. The nice topic from the Cloud ALM side is we get a lot of reporting possibilities to identify which test cases have been created, are in place, prepared, executed. One topic. The other topic is, yes, we prepare a lot of these elements. The discussion at the end will be which is necessary. But if you talk to an auditor and the auditor tells you what you can get rid of, simple question of the auditor normally is, please tell me what is the whole world. And then you can decide what is not necessary to be tested. Not the other way around. So you have to define first which you have to test totally. Then you can define what you can get rid of, or where you can use simple ISTQB methods, so using equivalent classes or border analysis or whatever to identify what you really need to test. Yeah? You're welcome.
Okay. Additional questions? Oh, it's brutal here with the projector.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
One in
over
front. Tim.
We saw in the diagrams that the change management and the features appeared, but you didn't say too much about it. We can use this time maybe so you can explain us, because it looks like one of the most immature areas of Cloud ALM. So which were your challenges and how did you manage?
Yeah, simple topic. You are totally right. Of course, the topic of authorizations, especially concerning features, is nicely open if you talk to the SAP guys. The thing is that we use the Jira user story to define what is allowed on the other side. And this gives us the possibility to define when you can go forward. Yeah, simply topic. We get a status in Jira, which is defined as ready for functional test. This status is dependent on test cases prepared, and on the other side, feature is in the status ready hand over to test. Yeah, so we check this from this side to stop it a little bit. Yeah, and you cannot go further with the user story if you do not get the information back. Feature successfully tested on the one hand, and on the other hand, test case executed. Yeah, and overall status passed. Otherwise, you have no chance to go back. Yes, we use Jira or misuse Jira for getting a little bit of structure inside for the moment, because it's still a little bit challenging. Yeah, for example, I'm not sure if everybody knows, if you want to really go forward with a feature, you have to give the relevant person the authorization to be a project lead. Otherwise, it's not really possible to handle and to create transport requests. This is still crazy, but the guys are very intensively working on this topic to make it more clear, more straightforward, and we are in direct connection to the guys and providing from our experience a little bit what may be necessary. Hopefully, we can also help a little bit to support this topic in this direction. So not totally solved until now, but at least some constraints directly integrated in the process.
Malte, I was missing you on stage. You were listed as a speaker. What is your question?
So just one additional comment maybe. So I was here listed as speaker, but it was just accidentally. So just one other answer regarding your question, what's the reason to use Jira? And we as a software vendor of Conigma Connect, we have several customers using ServiceNow, Jira, or other products additionally to Cloud ALM. And it's not the reason, it's not a tool-based reason, it's more or less a content-based reason. So that means we have consultancies that have their industry-specific knowledge, their industry-specific content in different tools. And at other customers, I don't know how it was at Rosenberger, at other customers, the reason sometimes is that you have to integrate this industry-specific content to Cloud ALM. So it's not a tool-based decision, it's more a content-based decision.
Thanks, Malte, for the insights. Any more questions? Yes.
Hi, Bastian Couch from XZ2. One question regarding a bit technically, because you're using the interfaces probably and the API to communicate between all the systems. How's the usage and the traffic affected? So do you use more than the 8 GB?
No. We are very fine with the APIs and the usage of the APIs. In some cases, we have to be a little bit flexible from our side because we talk about using two APIs on the one hand, so we have a job on the other side to check both topics on the Cloud ALM side. So it depends a little bit on which element is in place, but as you have perhaps seen, the APIs are coming from the SAP side very fast now with the relevant elements to feature, to test case. As far as I'm informed, starting next year for test cases for the definition and pre-fill for test cases. So will even get easier, and we have no performance troubles until now.
Okay.
Nothing.
And how many requests do you have? Do you have a number?
At the moment, we talk about approximately 200 Jira user stories in place. So approximately 600 elements on this side and changing status values changing every day for at least half of them.
Okay.
Yeah. So because we talk about a 3-week sprint with 200 user stories for an implementation, mainly focused on processes and process elements. You guys have to go forward fast.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Bastian.
Bjorn, if you don't mind, I'd like to add a comment to that.
Please.
Concerning the 8 GB and the APIs. So first of all, we're talking only about outbound traffic. So everything that goes into Cloud ALM is not counted. And then here, the APIs that we're using for test management, for creation of test cases, that's peanuts. Right. Let's make it simple. That's going to be a very low volume. So you really don't have to worry about that.
Thanks, Nicola. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I just have a question basically for the start of that, because as the basis, you basically use the business process modeling models from Rosenberger, right?
Yeah.
And in my experience, a lot of customers, they have some gaps there, and so there's some issue there. And I'm interested, what was the situation at Rosenberger? Did they use only best practices? Did they already have their own models in place? And can you give some insights there?
Yes, of course. Rosenberger started in principle from one side, from scratch. Nearly nothing modeled, only in some special areas with iGraphics in the past. And additionally, the implementation partner came with a structure and what we want to implement. And this is a basic definition of processes in the automotive area which we use. Yeah, and we have done a comparison with the best practices from the SAP, approximately 5 to 7%, nothing more. Yeah, so sorry to say, a little bit of hard work to get in the relevant direction, especially from old systems with a simple definition. And as you have seen before, the family of Rosenberger is forcing and pushing Rosenberger forward. It's another definition which you have to know in the background. Fine for you? You're welcome.
Maybe that leaves also one question for me. You know, it's all the challenges in Rosenberger growing quickly as a company, which I think is very positive. Let's imagine we are 1 year away from today. You are live with your solution. S4 is buzzing. Everybody is happy. What is your release strategy going forward? What do you plan? How often do you plan to update S4?
Hard to say.
That's a tough question. I'm
It's
sorry.
definitely
Yeah,
a
no,
tough
but,
question.
It's a little bit dependent on the project at the moment. Yeah, we will do an S/4HANA upgrade during Christmas holidays days to be prepared for the future, and then mainly the rollouts are in focus for the next 3, 4, 5 years. So it depends a little bit on how the project is going forward. And of course, on the other side, if you can use test automation to stabilize the system and have a regression test in place, because otherwise this will cause additional effort, which we have to take in consideration.
Makes sense. Thank you to the two of you, and thank you everybody for being here. Don't forget, there's also the possibility to put an evaluation in for the session, which I thought was spectacular. Give it up for Rosenberger.
Many thanks from our side.